on Senate Bill 207. We'll deal with that one first. And just kind of a review. This is the one that has two parts. It wants to establish a committee to study it. And then there's some language about emergency medical and trauma services. And as I understand it, the intent is to have them covered by, at least what we heard, covered by, as I understand it, workman's comp, and that somehow that was going to provide liability protection and let them maintain confidentiality about the people who are providing counseling with the people they're counseling. And the questions I had during the public hearing was, it wasn't clear to me. I mean, I support that, but it wasn't clear to me looking at the bill and the statute how the language in this bill actually provides liability protection as well as the confidentiality. So if there's anybody here who can speak to that.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. For the record, my name is Brian Rill. I'm the president of the Professional Firefighters of New Hampshire.
Not just a moment. How's that last name spelled?
Rill, R-Y-L-L.
I would not have guessed that. All right.
First and foremost, I would like to apologize to the members of the subcommittee. I was unavailable to be present at the full committee executive session on this to clear up any confusion, which it was clear that that's the direction it went. It was nothing but confusing. So that's my fault, and I apologize. I will start by saying the intent of this bill, and I'm only speaking to part 2 of the bill. We have nothing to do with part 1. Part 2 is the addition of the peer support groups and whatnot underneath the current RSA. The intent of this was to just expand upon post-traumatic stress disorder and resources here in the state of New Hampshire. So it's no surprise, and just a quick statistic, 20% of firefighters will at some point be diagnosed with some form of post-traumatic stress disorder or acute stress disorder. And that's from the Academy of Psychology. So that's the basis for why this is so important. In 2015, the International Association of Firefighters.
So, I mean, hang on.
Yes.
I'm looking, I mean, we heard testimony on that. I mean, and also if anybody in the committee else has questions, let me know. But I'm looking for an answer for a technical question.
Okay.
Which is, we heard testimony that passing this bill would provide the liability protection and let the people providing the peer counseling maintain confidentiality. Precisely how does passing this do that?
Very good. Thank you for your question. I am unsure of that because, again, that was not the intent of why we submitted it. Some folks came up and tried to do some explanation, and I think it just overcomplicated things. If you would allow, I'll explain the actual intent of that piece of the legislation. Under the current RSA, it states that, just make sure I get it right here. So a critical incident stress management team means the group of one or more trained volunteers.
And which RSA are you?
That is RSA 153A17.
Okay.
And this is, and I'm reading, you can read it straight from the amendment, and I'll just leave out the parts that are looking for amendment. But essentially, a critical incident stress management team in New Hampshire has to be organized by a unit of state, local, or county government. To simplify it, the teams that we have established in the state of New Hampshire for the professional firefighters of New Hampshire are not organized by a unit of state, local, or county government. This bill is intended to just expand that slightly and allow our organization, the Professional Firefighters of New Hampshire, to utilize their peer support services, their peer support group, which has been recognized by the Commissioner of Safety in a letter that you have in front of you, to allow for the protections under this RSA, much like any other critical incident stress team in the state. So this does two things. It expands that language because a union organization is not organized by state, local, or county government. So it expands it to allow our union to provide peer support services to our members. And what that does is it affords us the protections under confidentiality further down in the statute.
Where is that?
You can see it under 3A.
153 dash A
So 153
dash A.
A17A, and it would be 3A. Any information.
No, hang on, sorry.
Yep.
What's the RSA?
So it's the same RSA. I'm reading off.
153 dash A.
Yep.
All right.
17.
Colon 17.
Colon 17.
All right, hang on. All right, there it is.
A.
And then under there,
3A.
Roman 3.
Yep. Roman 3.
Okay,
A.
just give me a moment. Thank you. All right. Any information divulged to the team or team member kept confidential, not be disclosed. Okay.
So all this is looking to do, current critical incident stress teams in the state are afforded the protection to have anything divulged to them in their work as confidential, so that they're not required to testify or have any third-party administrative hearing where they have to share the information.
Right. I get
That's
that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was mentioned, I don't know if it was correct, and that's good because that the person who spoke at the public hearing was talking about being somehow under workman's comp or something, which didn't make any sense. But I see this here. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And also we heard that it provided some kind of liability protection for the team. And is that correct? And if so, where's that in statute?
So I think no is the easy answer.
Okay.
I think there may have been some confusion in words between liability and confidentiality. Basically, it affords them the protection of the confidentiality, which I guess you could interpret as a liability. But there's no, this is a no cost item. It's recognized already. Our team is recognized by the Commissioner of Safety. He was supportive of this change, but just didn't have the authority to make it on his own.
I see.
And the other piece to this is just defining, because if you look in, again, going back to the 153A17 under number 7, where it defines a critical incident stress management team.
Hang on a moment. So that's 153A17.
Yeah, it is under the amended bill right here.
What
No,
page
number
and line?
Number 7.
Okay, section 7. Okay. Yep.
And then under A, critical incident stress management team means the group of one or more trained volunteers, including members of a peer support group. Peer support group is not currently defined anywhere in statute. So the second piece of this, if you look below to F, is just defining peer support group so that it further encompasses the intent of the protections under this law.
Okay, and so, I mean, under the bill currently, it looks like it refers to as critical incident stress management team.
Yep, and it says means the group of one or more trained volunteers, including members of peer support groups. But nowhere in current statute does it state what a peer support group
Okay.
actually is.
All right, thank you. Anybody else on the committee have questions? I mean, that clears up my confusion and concern, so thank you for that.
Sure.
So
All set. Thank you.
Yep. Now, the other thing on the, and I mean, part two on this, I completely support. I know, you know, generally are not big fans of the committee, the first part, that sort of thing, the first part creates. And Representative McGuire had an amendment that just took out the study commission and left everything else in. You're okay with that? Okay. Any other comments on that? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, so the amendment takes out the study committee
Yeah.
on this bill.
Yes.
So the question about the workers' comp and how all works, I'm just unsure like how the bill breaks in half. I guess it's a logistics question.
Well, I think what we just heard is that the person who brought the workman's comp up thing during the public hearing basically misspoke. And that has nothing to do with workman's comp. That it's actually further down in the statute, which I hadn't read. I didn't get that far down in it, of 153, I believe. A17, the part we were just going over. And if you look at it, it deals with the confidentiality thing in there. It's very clear. So that satisfied my concern. My concern was that I supported what they want to do. My concern was the bill didn't seem to do what the person was talking about. So I think, and they're completely separate. So there's no establishing the study committee is not related to the rest of the bill. So they're basically independent. What's that? Turn your mic on. You can talk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So is it my understanding then, because of the confusion, because of the amendment, is it just we're not really making any progress here? This is not ready for...
I disagree. My intent is to make a motion first to adopt the amendment, which gets rid of the study committee, and then, you know, I'd be glad to accept or make, you know, an OTPA motion on the underlying bill. So we would remove the study committee part from the bill and keep the part we were just discussing that puts these peer support groups in statute, and therefore they get some protection rights, in particular the confidentiality part. So does that make sense? No, I'm not. No, please have a seat. If we have questions, we'll ask. This is not a public hearing. Okay. I mean, if there's a reason to have them.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that, as the chairman has suggested, this is pretty simple. We're getting rid of the study committee, but we're leaving the rest of it in there because it does provide some definitions and some protections. It doesn't cost a dime. And this is just a good thing to have. It's a place where these peer support groups were not really laid out in the RSAs. This basically takes care of that. So I look at it as more of a housekeeping thing than anything else, and providing more support to fire services and professionals that are out there working, and, you know, fire, police, whatever, that are working out there in the field.
You have any questions on this? No, I think he answered. Yeah. Do you still have questions on this? No. Okay, thank you. And sorry for not calling on people, but you know, unless somebody's here opposing the idea, are you? Well, quite frankly, if you can sit here and introduce yourself. Good morning. Well, turn the mic on, please. Sit down and then introduce yourself. This is being recorded, and no, you have to push there you go. Yep, you have to speak into the mic pretty much.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. My name is David Goldstein. I'm the Chief of Police in the city of Franklin. I've been a police officer for 44 years. I've been doing this kind of work for more than that time. I actually have a PhD in the subject. And we're a little bit concerned with some of the language that we're seeing here. And I am a member of Senator Birdsell's commission on PTSD as it relates to workers' comp. So I think that there may be some questions that I may be able to answer as well for you. But one of our biggest concerns right now is that the language in HB2 is different than the language in the amendment, recommended amendment, as far as some of this is concerned. So we unfortunately, and I apologize, we did not know that this hearing would be going on. Our information was that it was going to be suspended for some period of time, but here we are. And any questions that I may be able to answer, I'd be happy to do so. I also chair the Chiefs Legislative Committee.
Okay. I was unaware there was anything related to this in HB2.
Yes, sir.
Um,
If you look at HB2,
and this was as amended by the House, presumably. Let me,
under the same RSA 153A
just give me a
17-8,
moment. Was it in HB, presumably it was in HB2 as passed by the House.
that is my information,
So
yes.
we can look that up. It's amended by the House. Okay, and I'll just look for, do you have a section number where it is? in
I
HB2?
do, there are a couple, again, it's under 153-A,
Yeah.
colon 17 dash, small a,
Hang on.
which I think you've already been aware of.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to find it in HB2, that's
Yep.
all, which is a
And
monstrosity.
it would be paragraph E and G that we look at some of the differences.
Three. A. Yeah, I didn't bring my copy of HB2 because I didn't realize this would become an issue.
Happy to share mine.
17, 17-A. Okay, I'm seeing the part where it's section 133. Is
Yes,
that the one you're talking about? Okay.
correct.
Oh, so this is in here. All right. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
A question, the amendment number that we're looking at, can I just have that amendment
sure,
number?
it's 1291H.
Thank you.
And really, the amendment number just duplicates part 2 of the bill. And so it doesn't include the first, it replaces the whole bill. It includes part 2 and everything beyond, everything else basically, which is part 2 and then the effective date. So I'm just looking at, there is language that looks very similar in HB2, which I don't think any of us were aware of. And so what, if you can point out where is there conflict?
Well, our conflict originally comes from section E under 133,
Critical incident stress management.
where it talks about employee organization in HB2, whereas in the amendment I have anyway, under Senate Bill 207, it says, or members of a union of emergency response public safety workers as defined by RSA 281A2. So we're a little bit concerned with the
Right,
the
so
contradiction.
if there was a choice of, I mean, are you okay with the language that's in HB2?
We're a little bit concerned by that because we don't know what that definition is.
So, or employee organizations, the
Correct.
concern about,
So that could be anything, Mr. Chairman. That could be the janitors and please, I'm not disrespecting janitors.
Yeah.
That could be the janitors union at a school.
okay. All right,
And just to add to that,
Yeah.
if you statutorily now, DPW workers are now defined statutorily as first responders. So we're a little bit concerned with the lack of definition, if you will.
okay. Take a look here. And are you okay with the language that's in the amendment, or do you see problems there as well?
The amendment has a little bit more strength to it, yes, a little bit more bite. And we would, if we were forced to choose, I would say we'd probably go with the amendment.
But I mean, if you had, what would be your preferred language?
Our preferred language would actually be to have a definition. And I believe the previous speaker brought up the fact that there are some definitions lacking. But we would like a definition of what is meant by that. I'm not sure what they mean by union of.
Okay. Okay, just a moment.
Certainly.
So, folks on the committee, what I would like to suggest is that we ask Mr. Goldstein and anybody else interested if they have suggested language for those definitions. And then we've got 2 weeks, I think, before it's going to be exact. Didn't want to drag people up here again, but we could have a subcommittee meeting to go over that and, tweak it if need be and come to an agreement, and we can have a different amendment drafted.
I fully agree. I think that's the thing to do, is get some suggested, wording
Yes,
for getting that correction within the amendment that we have here.
we would be
So
happy
that
to
it
do
gets
that.
that taken care of. I was unaware of the SB2 thing as well. That would have come through my division, but I wasn't here at the time, I think. So certainly it's, that would be the much easiest way to do it. We'll come back. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any comments? Are we all Representative Bear? Hey, Bear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you very much for shedding some light on this.
My pleasure.
All right, and can you just send the committee, send us an email on just outlining the concerns you just had, pointing out the section in HB2, and then, taking this amendment, which I assume you've looked at, and suggest some changes to it, which we can look at.
We would be delighted to do so.
Okay. Is there anybody else who have any
Thank you.
different issues with this who's here with 207? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the subcommittee work session on SB 207. Organized here a little bit. Things that come out. All right, and then I'm going to open the subcommittee work session on SB 106. And so I'll tell you what I was thinking, then I'd like to, you said you had more later information from Representative Grota. Okay. So what was pointed out by Representative McGuire is in 170E:50, which is part of the HHS statute, which is Chapter 170E is child daycare, residential care, and child placement agencies, and 50 is credentialing of personnel in early care and education programs. So basically, it's HHS that does the regulation of childcare, it appears, and also, I can read this, it's short, but basically it gives HHS rulemaking authority to do whatever credentialing. So HHS has, as I read this and as Chair McGuire reads this, has the authority to do this now under rulemaking.
I know there's somebody here.
If you can turn the mic on.
Sorry. I know there's somebody here to speak on that, and maybe if she could come up and speak on it as well. My understanding is that there is some conflict between HHS and education that creates some confusion in some of this, but I think she can give us a
Okay.
better,
If there's somebody here who can speak to that,
or anybody here that can
who,
speak to
who
it.
comes up, can come up, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I am Jay Kahn, former state senator from Keene, and someone who has worked with the Department of Health and Human Services extensively on this issue. So as I understand your question specifically right now, it is related to why not do this through rules versus doing this through statute.
Correct, because it looks like 170E:50 explicitly gives HHS rulemaking authority to do precisely what you're looking for.
And so I'll disagree with that.
Okay,
And offer that HHS has rulemaking authority, and they have developed a set of rules. But they have not, in that set of rules, recognized the Department of Education's career technical education programs as training for the early childhood credentialing. And that is what this is trying to do. A common thing that exists across the nation is that for early childhood, there's dual jurisdiction by Health and Human Services departments and departments of education. And it gets to be complicated to credential early educators. And this is trying to transcend that and get beyond it by assuring that the students who go through training in our high school career technical education programs leave those programs with an industry recognized credential. That the Department of Health and Human Services hasn't touched. So this is, and this has the support of the department and their Bureau of Credentialing.
Which department, which?
The Health and Human
Health and Human
Services.
I mean, has anyone approached them about doing this through rulemaking? And is there some legal technical issue why they can't do it? Because it's not clear to me there is. I mean, I don't see anything in the statute that would prevent them from recognizing graduation from such a CTE program to get a credential.
Well, this is a specific charge, obviously, and we know law trumps rules, right?
Hmm?
We know that laws trump rules.
Sure.
This makes sure that the intent of the legislature to make sure that both the Department of Education and HHS will have a program that leads to a credential for entry into early childhood education.
So I have a question. I thought we heard that DOE and the CT program had this educational program. I mean, they can't grant the credential, but that they have the education program in place. Is that not correct? Correct?
They do.
Okay, thank you. So we don't need to get them, it sounds like, to do anything different. It's just a question of, well, I guess my other question is, has anybody actually approached HHS about creating such a credential? And what was the response?
That this is a good way to go about it. They were here for the hearing and supported this effort. And they've been very cooperative in developing this language.
I just don't understand why, if the legislature's already given the authority to do this, they want to have more stuff in statute to confirm that. And that's not something I would normally want to do. So the basic question is there anything really preventing them from doing it today through rulemaking?
One needs to wonder if this was their intent, why has this not been done? They just recently went through rulemaking and ignored this route. It has not been done. You have a table in front of you, and I brought extra copies of it, of the various credentials that the department has gone through rulemaking to establish. There is an emerging professional certificate. It does not recognize the completion of a CTE program.
Okay. Is there anyone here from HHS who can speak to this? No? Well, who are you representing? Okay, thank you. All right. I mean, have they expressed any, it seems strange to me that they're saying they'd like this language. Just a moment. Oh, sorry. You have a question? Yep, sorry.
If this is going to require
And therein is the rub between two agencies. Actually, Jackie might be a better
I mean,
person
for-
to
I mean, I
address that
certainly want to hear
question.
what you have to say, but also there's a statute that explicitly gives HHS the authority. I don't know if you can
Again, how do
expound.
you do? I'm Jackie Cowell from Early Learning New Hampshire. We're a statewide nonprofit. We advocate on behalf of childcare programs and professionals. And so we do support this bill because, yes, it is true perhaps that HHS could do it. They haven't done it for years. CTE has been around for a long time. We do think this will strengthen that. And we have to do everything we can right now to bring childcare professionals into the field. And we think this will strengthen it by having this law. But also, I think former Senator Khan had mentioned previously, if you do have this credential, if it is called this emerging credential, many places will hire these high school students right out of this program at higher salaries with this very particular credential. And I do think it's a statement the legislature would be great to make, even though, yes, could have been done perhaps. It hasn't been done ever, and it could have been
I mean,
done for
has
years.
anybody talked with HHS about this? Have they had some reason, some objection to it?
No, there is none. Deb Nelson leads the Child Care Credentialing Bureau in HHS. She is out on an extended family leave medical issue. I regret that, because, obviously, but she has been a partner in this. She rewrote this for the Senate. That's what the nature of the Senate amendment is. She recognizes the gap and the effort to fill the gap with a high school program
I
that can
understand.
lead to
So-
credentialing.
Is there someone else who, in the department who could speak to this, other than her, if she's not available?
Well, we had Brian Clark here for the hearing, and he was in support.
Well, I'm not asking that. My question is, they have the authority to do it. Why have they chosen not to do it? That's what I want an answer to. And do they have, and is there some reason they're reluctant to do it? Or they have some opposition to it, which you say they don't? If so, why didn't they do it through rules? This isn't making a lot of sense, basically. So if you,
Yeah, I can give you some names of those folks who could answer that question for
Right,
you.
sure.
My guess, so Diane Chase, DIANNE .R, as in Roger, .Chase, CHASE. She's the second in command to Deborah Nelson, who's on
okay.
leave.
And that's at Ledge,
At
not Ledge,
DHHS,
but,
yes, DHHS.nh.gov.
okay.
At and again, what has been historic, because this does connect the Department of Education. My guess is it's never been done, never been talked about because of those two dual roles. That they didn't do a rulemaking for something with Department of Ed, but the fact that they have been very supportive of this and feeling, again, like if the legislature says how important this is, will help.
Right. I mean, the Department of Ed already has the program. I don't see why they even need to be involved. So having to coordinate it doesn't, maybe there's something I'm missing, and if there's some information provided that makes it clear why they cannot do it now, then, I might look at this differently. But anybody else in the committee have questions for them or comments?
Yeah, from my understanding is this is not something new. This is something that I guess it was a long-term study that went on, and this was one of the core recommendations that came out of it to utilize this program, Department of Education. So it's been in front of DHHS for more than a couple of years, and they haven't taken any action on it. And I think we're probably all in wondering why they haven't as well, but just assuming that there is some sort of line between the two that neither department wants to cross. and that they're here to, you know, we're here to basically require that they cross that line by putting it into statute. So I understand the reluctance of putting it into statute, but this is maybe one place where we have to.
Anyone else here? Just hang on. Yes? Yep. Representative Bear. Hey, Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Personally, I like the bill. I like the idea of bringing more willing students that want to get a certification into the workforce and in getting that certification, and the fact that we haven't had a real weigh in on why HHS has not done it leads me to believe that maybe in the middle of COVID over the last 3 or 4 years that everything has fallen to a low priority, and I like it. I'm in support.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, I mean, but education doesn't offer a certification. They don't have the authority. It could be given, but. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
if I might,
yeah,
something that might address your concern. If you go to page 2 of this bill and line 1, and note the kinds of sites that can be used for the clinical hours, you'll notice that it covers licensed center-based childcare programs, licensed family childcare programs, or public or private school pre-K through 3rd grade programs. The public and private school pre-K programs are not licensed through HHS. That's one of the barriers that there is in this cross-agency issue. This statute says, no, you will recognize those child care programs in the school that are school-based. And those hours then will count towards the certification.
okay.
And that's a specific change that enables the certification to be comparable in this bill
Okay.
to the rules that
All right, thank you.
HHS has set
So
before.
what I would, to the committee, what I'd like to suggest, we have to get together again anyway for 207. What I'd like to do, there's not a real strong objection, would be to try and get a hold of Diane Chase and ask explicitly, why they haven't done it. And maybe it is this issue, and that really is a legal technical issue, in which case I'd probably be okay with this. If they have, I just want a clear answer from HHS as to why they haven't done this. And maybe it could be they haven't gotten around to it and now they could. Maybe there is, this does, because presumably the CTE program allows the clinical to occur in those places, then maybe they can't accept the CTE certificate. That could very well be it, and I would understand that. So, yeah, sure.
Mr. Chairman, from my understanding is that this program will also, or this here will also help people who may have, and I'm looking at adults more than kids, who may have taken courses in high school but not gotten into the field and not been able to complete their their requirements, and not having to go back to a community college system, but being able to use experience where they may have had years of experience to get credentialed, but they do not have the college requirements to get credentialed. This would allow them to be credentialed based on their experience and working in the field.
Where in the statute does it say that?
Well, no, it's just that people who may not want to go back to school to get those things, this would give them the ability to do it.
How would
through
this bill
credentialing.
do that?
By allowing them to have experience in these different types of facilities, such as a child care program, a licensed family program, a public or
but
private
that's-
school.
Um,
Right now, without going
Yeah,
back
but
and getting
I think
courses.
that's that would have to be under the CTE program. I don't think this bill addresses at all the issue of just general experience.
Well, this would maybe somebody who went through a CTE program at one point but did not get credentialed and did not have the additional training that under current system you have to get some additional college credits in order to get in order to become certified. This would allow them to utilize experience.
Yeah, I'm skeptical that this would work because it says they have to have 500 hours in a career and technical education teacher education program that includes minimum 250 hours of observation, all this other stuff. And so they've got to, according to this, they have to have this experience within, as part of a CTE program. I don't think it'll do that at all. I mean, that might be a good thing to do, might, you know, in a later bill, but I don't think this will do it. At least the way I read this statute. the
My
bill.
advice has been, again, different from that. That's all from people who, my wife is in this situation and hires these people and looks at being able to get some people credentialed that are unable to be credentialed at the current time.
Yeah, actually, I might want to talk with her about that, but if that can, and Representative Hebert?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question off
Sure.
of Representative Grassi's comments. Would a high school, you know how you can take night courses at a high school or extracurricular? Is that what that means?
Well, as I read this, it would have to be within a CT program, and I don't know if the CT programs offer night classes to adults, but I suppose if they did offer that program, that form, yeah, it could work. But again, I mean, there's nothing that would prevent HHS from accepting rulemaking. And I really like to understand why they haven't done it. I mean, if maybe technical stuff that they feel that there's a legal potential issue, and that's legit. And then, or there may be some other reason.
I do want to reiterate,
Yep.
the answer is, and you can call Diane Chase,
Yep.
but the answer is that the high school-based CTE programs are generally, almost exclusively, but I think there's maybe one or two instances where the CTE doesn't have a child care center but offers a certificate program. So they have to go outplacement
Right.
to an HHS licensed facility. This allows for a non-HHS licensed facility that a program that is licensed or permitted through the Department of Education to be able to offer those clinical hours. That's what this does.
Okay.
And when the student goes through these programs, and I provided that to you earlier too, I'd be glad to provide that. What the program has, these programs have these requirements, they meet these requirements, and they can deliver people into the field with both education and clinical hour experience through the school-based program. And the department can't do that right now
Okay.
because they don't recognize and don't license the school-based
I mean,
programs.
that may very well be the issue, in which case I could support this, but I would feel more comfortable if I talked to Diane Chase and talked it over. And, you know, I mean, somebody could make a motion, we could do whatever here, but, you know, if that's what's going on, then I'd likely support the bill, and I think some other members of the committee would be much more likely to support the bill if that were clearly answered by HHS. So unless there's, and we have to come back anyway, so unless there's an objection, I'd like to do the same thing as the other bill, is to get some more information and take it up again.
Respect for the chair. Out of respect for the chair, I will not object to that, so, but.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'm nitpicky and want to be comfortable with it, maybe more. And you know, if we get an answer, if I get an answer, I'll let the subcommittee know. And I think if it's clearly something like this, and then you know, if we get language to deal with the conflict with HB2 on the other bill, and I can get a proposed amendment drafted and send it around, I think that you know, if those are true, the follow-up meeting could be quite short and could even schedule it like at 9 a.m. before when we exec next, so you don't have to have another drive up here. So. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Just one. I'm not sure what your version of 106 is, but if you have a version that says in lines 1 through 10, an amendment to 170E11
This is page
on page 1.
1 through 10. Yeah, by inserting the paragraph N at After subparagraph N, the following, yeah.
But amends RSA 170E:11.
Yep.
That was the way this originally came out of OLS, and that should not be part of this bill any longer,
And why is that?
because this section of the statute is relative to the daycare center licensing. Daycare center licensing. What begins on line 11 is the amendment that was asked for by the department to make sure that this bill amends 170E:50.
Okay.
That is the statute that is related to credentialing of personnel, not centers, but personnel.
All right, let me take a look.
I'm getting mine online and they all say 170E11.
Yeah,
None
so
of
that's
them
how it
say
came out of the
170E.
Senate, apparently.
And
On the first line, and then on line 11, it says that,
So
oh,
basically,
there it is. Okay, I see it now. And it says number 2.
basically you'd want to remove section 1?
yes,
Okay.
So we're gonna need amendment anyway.
you do.
Okay.
Okay, then that solves that problem right there.
I'm sorry I gotta fess up here, but that's,
Yeah, we have gotten some bills, well, there's two, and as amended by the Senate second. Let me make sure, no, they both, yeah. The 170E11 thing is there. And so this, not having this, there's no need for some equivalent language somewhere else? It's just
No.
not needed?
Jay, could you get some wording on that to us, please? Or
Well, it sounds like it just needs, the amendment just
Yeah.
needs
so
to
we know what it
delete.
needs to look like exactly.
I'll hand this to you.
Okay, thank you.
But I assume it's just, or correct me if I'm wrong, it's just, take this, do an amendment that removes section 1,
Yes,
right? And would renumber the other sections,
yes.
usual thing. Okay, and yeah, if you can give me a copy of that, and I will get copies sent out. You can actually just scan it at home and email it. It's easy. All right, thank you. And I'm going to close the, unless there's anything else in the committee, I'm going to close the subcommittee work session on SB 106. And thank you, everyone.